All right, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we are decoding a deeply atmospheric, dark, Gothic fable by stepping directly into the recovered journal of a figure simply known as the Wanderer. Through a series of his handwritten letters, we're going to explore the profound Nietzschean psychodynamics of self-overcoming. We'll follow his incredible personal transformation through a gauntlet of trials and contrast his dynamic journey against a static, terrifying trap known as the web of nihilism. So let's crack open the first entry, shall we? The very first letter is dated from a place called the Horizon of the Dead Shore. A profound tragedy has struck the city of Silt. The citizens there are just weeping, clutching these shattered clay idols, absolutely terrified because their great sky lantern has gone cold forever. The Wanderer writes, "How shall we comfort ourselves now that the holiest has bled to death under our knives?" It's a beautifully striking metaphor for the total collapse of meaning and objective truth. The light is gone, and the people are left totally adrift in the dark. Now look at the stark contrast in his journal notes here. A terrified citizen grasps his cloak, weeping that the cosmic anchor is severed and they're straying into an infinite nothing. We've all probably felt that sudden panic of losing a core belief, right? But the Wanderer, he doesn't weep. Wearing shoes crafted from his own discarded certainties, he gently tells the man that they only fear the open sea. For him, the loss of the old horizon isn't a tragedy. It simply means the seas stand open once again. This actually brings us to a massive philosophical concept, the open sea. Echoing Friedrich Nietzsche's Section 343, the loss of absolute meaning doesn't have to be a source of despair. Instead of freezing in terror like the citizens, the Wanderer pushes his brittle skiff right into the pitch-black waves. He embraces it as a cheerful opportunity. Steering toward a dawn he is going to invent entirely himself. He transforms the death of the old world into the ultimate form of freedom. But, what exactly is he escaping by going out to sea? Well, later letters warn of a creature dwelling beneath the floorboards of the Gilded Hollow, von Nix. This tarantula-like entity is patiently spinning an insidious equality of flatness. Its web mechanics are terrifyingly simple. First, it levels all distinction, connecting souls with gray silk. Second, it stifles growth, trapping those souls in a suffocating, manufactured safety. And third, it weaponizes language, literally preaching nothingness and calling its venom justice or virtue to easily trap its prey. In his next entry, the Wanderer recounts Parable 2, set in the freezing iron forest. He stumbles into this Gothic cathedral that's been turned into a grim banquet hall. Inside are the last scholars, chained to their seats with heavy iron logic, literally feasting on bowls of ash. The high priest offers him a spoonful of this final truth, and the Wanderer just spits it out onto the cold stone floor, declaring, "Your truth is a beautifully preserved corpse. Your spirits are too fragile to dance on the tightrope of doubt." By spitting out that ash, he is perfectly embodying the intellectual conscience, which is Nietzsche's demand in Section 2 for a playful, living, and dynamic engagement with truth. The last scholars traded a living God for a dead formula purely out of a desperate need for certainty. But the Wanderer, he just laughs, and it's a sharp, ringing laugh that literally shatters the stained glass windows of the cathedral. Refusing their dogmatic chains, he turns his back on their sanctuary and steps right back out into the biting winter storm. So the immense divide between these two forces becomes absolutely crystal clear in his writings. The Wanderer's path is all about constant movement. It's a dynamic tightrope of doubt that demands continuous personal growth. Completely opposing that is von Nix's web, an iron-chained stasis. The web offers the illusion of safety, but it's really a suffocating trap that leaves souls as flat and sterile as a tomb. Think about your own life for a second. Are you walking the tightrope, or are you comfortably wrapped in the gray silk of stasis? Of course, choosing this rebellion leads to a terrifying trial. In his letter from the Black Ridge, he describes an obsidian serpent coiling tightly around his neck. It is the demon of the eternal return. Pressing its freezing scales against his cheek, the demon whispers that every step, every sorrow, and every scar on his feet will repeat in an endless, unyielding loop. Under the crushing weight of 1,000 midnights, it asks the ultimate question: would you throw yourself down and curse the demon? With his knees buckling against the frozen rock, the Wanderer makes his choice, illustrating Nietzsche's concept of amor fati. This is the ultimate test of embracing life. Instead of cursing his fate, he forces a fierce, triumphant grin. He breathes in the icy air, squeezes the serpent until it ceases to constrict, and whispers, "Once more." He chooses his path, frost and all, 1,000 times over. This is a massive takeaway for us. Can we love our fate so deeply that we would actively choose our hardest moments all over again? From those frozen peaks, the Wanderer's Journal then abruptly shifts its focus back to the Gilded Hollow to drop a really sinister psychological truth on us. Von Nixt isn't just a physical monster. He is the archetypal representation of the id. He is a primal subterranean venom of envy, a dark hunger for revenge. He just sits there in the damp dark beneath the floorboards, patiently spinning that gray silk to drag absolutely everyone down to his miserable level. But here's the truly scary part. Von Nichts isn't acting alone. Sitting directly above the floorboards is the High Judge, representing the superego. The Wanderer's notes detail a terrifying symbiosis here. The judge maintains a complicity of silence. By refusing to even name the tarantula in the walls, the judge builds his authority on the very anxiety the id creates, repackaging it as moral doctrine. The horrifying truth revealed in the Void Mirror is that the judge's righteous desire to punish is fundamentally identical to Von Nicht's primal resentment. This psychodynamic divide violently clashes in his next letter. Up at a volcanic summit, the Wanderer meets the Hermit of the Veil, a man who literally blinded himself to avoid looking at a fallen world. The Hermit asks why he still moves in a diseased cosmos. In response, the Wanderer strips off his coat, exposes his chest to the searing wind, and fully embraces the great health, a health that must be constantly conquered, embracing sickness as the labor pains of a new god. The Hermit, conversely, represents the sterile order, desperately hiding and trying to eliminate the very conditions needed for growth. Leaping across a river of volcanic fire with fluid freedom, the Wanderer claims his new title in a triumphant, messy scrawl. I have traversed the swamps of nihilism. I am no longer just a traveler. I am the Argonaut of the spirit, unburdened by the gravity of the valley below. He looks at the grim, dark fabric of existence, and instead of seeing an infinite nothing, he sees a blank canvas waiting for a drop of gold. He has truly become the joyful creator. But, as with all great journeys, the journal entries don't just end peacefully on the summit. The Wanderer must eventually return to the world below. When he descends, he finds it entirely consumed by the inferno of nihilism. The old order has completely collapsed. The symbols of institutional authority have entirely dissolved. And that quiet, patient spinning of Von Nicht's gray silk in the damp dark, that has ended, replaced by an active, raging fire. His final notes lay out exactly how this total societal collapse occurred. It's a three-phase timeline. Phase 1, subterranean envy, with the id spinning its web down in the dark. Phase 2, complicity, where the High Judge fed the creature through a sterile, silent order. And finally, because the judge refused to directly confront the creature, we hit Phase 3, the final merger. The superego's legalistic power merged completely with the id's primal resentment, creating a terrifying new entity that speaks with the tarantula's voice. And that new entity is the Red Judge. The Wanderer's final entry details their epic, inevitable confrontation. It's a clash of two absolute extremes. The Argonaut of the spirit, driven by Amor Fati and joyful creation, steps right into the inferno. Against him towers the Red Judge, acting as a machine of pure retribution, branding the earth with dead iron logic. But the Wanderer doesn't fight with traditional weapons. He fights with fluid motion. He dances on the tightrope of doubt, weaving through the machine's rigid, heavy strakes, proving once and for all that dynamic creation can eternally outmaneuver an unforgiving trap. As we wrap up this explainer, we're kind of left standing in the ashes of that confrontation, the words of the Wanderer's Journal still echoing in our minds. So I want to leave you with the crushing weight of the Obsidian Serpent's challenge. If this midnight spoke to you, would you crave this moment eternally? Can you actually look into your own abyss, face the total collapse of your certainties, and choose your path 1,000 times over? Because as we've learned from the Wanderer today, navigating that dark sea is the only way you will ever find your dawn.